Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Garden Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. So today we have our part 2 of our football Week 8 recap. And today we're going to go over some sell high candidates and talk about our scoop 'em ups of the week. So make sure you listen for all that information. This has been such a blast recording these 2 episodes with our cousin Kyle. He's been a great guest and he's welcome back anytime. This was definitely super fun. So thank you all for listening and we hope you enjoy.
Let's break into sell highs then. So this one, I basically put up 8 question marks that I just wanted to run by each of you.
Okay.
Because at this point, it's hard to say whether or not to sell high and if it's worth it. There might be a couple in here that's for sure, but I don't know. I kind of have it as like sell high or hold at this point.
Okay, I gotcha. So it's
Kind
like a
question mark. So
yeah.
is Leonard Fournette still a sell high?
I think he's a. I'll go first here, Kyle. Sorry, but I think he's definitely a sell high just because most likely on most teams he's like your third running back, maybe your second running back, and you probably got some decent bench players too. Like I think he's definitely a sell high. Try and get something, maybe some more consistency or something. I just feel like he's definitely a piece most owners of him would be willing to try and dangle out there.
Look for kind of like if you can find a team that's desperate for a running back.
Yeah,
Try
there's
and trade
teams
with
out
them.
there that are.
But otherwise, yeah, if people don't look at this last week, since he was kind of a bust, then you might just have to hold. That's why I had a question mark. Kyle, what do you think?
And like you said, it all depends on your roster. If you have the players or the bench players, or maybe able to get someone out of the trade that you think could do well for you. I mean, he only has 4 total touchdowns so far this season. I mean, obviously we know Tom Brady likes to throw the ball into the end zone a lot. So, it's hard because, you're looking at a lot of these other running backs, and a lot of times like you're facing an opponent that has a running back who's getting, 2 touchdowns maybe, or obviously Derrick Henry is an outlier, I think, with him being the king, but like only 4 total touchdowns so far through 8 games. He's got 412 rushing yards, which is ranked 10th in the NFL. But again, if you have the ability to get rid and you're able to get something decent in return, maybe you're able to improve your receiving core because that's a weak spot for you, and you think that you'll be okay without him because you have him flex or RB2 and you can move someone from your flex up. Then I'd say go for it. But obviously, if you're still relying on him week to week, then possibly not. Then he's decent enough to where if you're relying on him, then don't. If you can afford to get rid of him, then see what you can get.
I agree with that. Sound logic.
For sure. Next one, Kyle's going to hate, but let me explain first. Michael Pittman Jr.
Bro!
We talked about him as a sell high last week with 16.5 fantasy points and a half point PPR. And here's my reasoning. Half of his games have been good and above 10, and then half have been pretty mediocre to bad. So this might be the most he's worth if he's going to keep up that trend of being on and off. Coming off a 20.6 fantasy point per week, and the week before that 16.5. Can he keep that up?
I think
is he worth the hold, or is he worth the most right now for a sell?
I think you just got to see what you can get because a trade's only, as good as the person you're trading with, right? So you just got to see what you can actually get for him. I mean, if you can actually sell high on him and get like a decent, like a nice haul kind of out of it, I think that could definitely be worth it. If it might set you up, give you more depth in other areas, but. If you're just looking to trade to make a trade, I'm not so sure because he is doing pretty good. It just depends on your situation too. If you're really deep at receiver and you can afford losing him and taking a bit of a risk, but maybe you could trade him for like James Robinson or something like that. I don't know. Maybe someone else.
I object to you thinking that he should be set. Okay, here's my thing. I say hold. The reason being is against San Fran and then a tough matchup at Tennessee and a half point PPR. He had 18.5 points, followed by today was 25.6. I think in full PPR, I think it was 30.6 is what he had. The next two opponents for them are the Jets and Jacksonville. So if this is a guy that you're relying on week to week, I mean, those are two really nice matchups, especially for Carson Wentz to be able to sling the ball.
He's done bad against
don't the Jets
teams.
have a sneaky good defense?
So
they're coming to form.
I'm going to talk about that at the very end because I have a question for both of you. So don't get you're getting ahead of me, Zach. Not on purpose, but
Okay.
you're going to bring up your foreshadowing. But
Gotcha.
I don't know. I feel like Pittman, again, if you're going to kind of like you were saying, I guess if you're going to get good stuff for him, then yes. But me, I'm holding him because he's been, especially now that I lost Calvin Ridley. I mean, he's going to be honestly my RB2.
Well, you have to, yeah.
I have to, and it's not someone to where that I feel like I need to get rid of him now. He's had bad weeks kind of sprinkled in between other good weeks, and luckily my team's been able to compensate for it. But like today, he was huge for me. So for me, I'm not moving off him. I think I'm going to hold him for now. So
Okay, that's good. I like that we had both ways there.
For sure, you like it both ways, huh?
I wasn't going to say it because it's not my podcast, but you know what?
Gosh.
Brandon Cooks, 14.3 fantasy points. We know everybody who plays PPR loves this guy, but it's also Houston. So would you sell high?
I mean, he's definitely more of a sell high in my eyes than Pittman.
Not comparing the two, just.
And I was a sell high on Pittman, so I'm definitely sell high on Brandon Cooks. I'm like, at this point, he had a good week. If you're still if you're still starting him as like most likely a flex in most leagues, definitely think if you can get like maybe a running back or more wide receiver depth or something from Brandon Cooks, why not do it? I think he screams sell high to me.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's had good weeks that are kind of sprinkled in. Like I said, he gets a lot of targets and he gets a lot of volume. But the fact that he still has really good weeks that are on it, I feel like you could probably get something good in return. Maybe someone a little less high of a ceiling,
you may be able to
consistent.
But you could you could do him 1-for-1 and get like Zach Moss maybe.
Could, yeah. If you're
try that.
busy at wide receiver, I mean, I think that's a reasonable trade to try and get like a definitely a good floor running back. I agree.
Right.
All right. Would you sell high on Michael Carter? His only good week. Well, no, he's had.
No, he's actually been a pretty decent fantasy player this year.
He's actually had some decent ones. So he's had. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually own him in the league that the three of us are in. Is it the league that the three of us are in? I think it is.
Yes, you do.
Okay, yeah. I have him. I'm viewing him as a hold because I've always thought highly of him this whole season. Because ever since he, came out of college, he's been a good pass catcher, and we're in a PPR league, and he had I don't know how many catches, but he had 96 yards receiving today. I mean, I've always looked at this guy as his upside could be like Alvin Kamara-esque if they could use him the right way and the Jets actually had some semblance of an offense going. I felt like this guy could be very good in a PPR league especially. So I'm looking at him as a hold because I feel like he's one bright spot on the Jets and he's a very talented young guy. And I'm just milking him for all he's worth, really.
For sure. And well, he's your flex, and so your wide receivers are good.
I'm pretty good at all my positions. I would move him if I had a good offer that a fair offer, but I'm not the offer is going to come to me basically is what I'm saying. Like I'm not going to be the one initiating a trade.
You're a hold.
Yeah.
What about you, Kyle?
Understood. I don't know. It's always hard to try and get rid of an RB1. I mean, my true opinion. It's like if you're stacked, if you're in because we're in a 12-man league for the league that we're all three of us are in. So the players are very slim and few between. But like if you're in maybe an 8-man or a 10-man, and he's your flex and you're stacked with your other two running backs, then I'd say yes. Otherwise, I mean, he's an RB1. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to try and get rid of him, especially when you look at their opponents. So They're going to go up, have a tougher game against Indy and then Buffalo, but then they're Miami, Houston, Philly. New Orleans will be hard. Miami again, Jacksonville, and then finish up hard at Tampa Bay and Buffalo. So he's got a lot of games that he could probably do really well at, especially if Mike Smith, the next Tom Brady, is going to keep playing like this.
Yeah.
He got 90. He had 14 targets, 9 receptions for 95 receiving yards on top of then 15 rushing attempts for 77 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah. That's Alvin Kamara.
That's huge production. Like that's top 10 production. But obviously sustainability, who knows? It's the Jets.
Yeah. Will he consistently do that? Or but I feel like
don't want to look at it with recency bias.
The skill set though is fantasy gold level in a PPR league. The skill set, that running back that can catch passes. That's those guys are coveted,
but maybe not the Jets and maybe not this year.
Right. And
if you're going to sell him as an RB. I would think sell him as an RB1. The past 3 weeks, he's been good.
He actually has been a pretty consistent running back, getting like 9 points a week. So
yeah, but his position rank was 41. I wouldn't call that like
true. But and also another reason that I think he's a hold, just in my situation in the league that I have him. James Robinson just went down with a potential injury now, so I feel like I'm definitely not going to be looking to sell him high in that league. So because I might have to, he's going to get pushed up from my flex to my running back too. So that just limits what I'm willing to do. So that's another reason I'm a hold on him. My personal situation.
For sure. All right, we've talked about James Conner as a sell high for on and off for weeks now, but it seems like he just keeps getting, keeps doing the touchdown back duties. Sell high still, or is he a hold?
So I like James Conner. I think he'd be a hold just because we have weeks and weeks and weeks of evidence that they give him the ball in the red zone. He gets the red zone looks. He's going to score those touchdowns. He's going to be the LeGarrette Blount of this year, the guy that gets all the red zone targets and scores a bunch of touchdowns. I think he's a hold, and he's just a flex player every week, and why not? He'll get you 10 every week, and you're basically set for 10 points every week, and you're out of your flex spot that you can basically take to the bank.
Would you try to trade him for Kyle Pitts?
No.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Especially playing PPR, I'd trade him for Kyle Pitts in a heartbeat. I don't know. It's hard because he's, like you said, he's goal line touches, and Arizona's been playing fantastic. But if they start getting caught up and can't move the ball in the ground very much, or they can't get close enough to where he's going to start taking those touches, you take away those touchdowns, and he really doesn't have that much volume. He's 5 attempts for 22 yards and 2 touchdowns. If I feel like he's a sell high. If you're able to get a running back that gets more touches, just because obviously you're rolling that dice week to week that Arizona's gonna be able to get in that red zone and give him the ball to crank his way into the end zone. But if they, and they did great against Green Bay, they played a really good game against Green Bay, and I feel like that just kind of solidifies Arizona for sure now as a absolute like NFC Championship contender. But I don't know. I feel like if the price is right to get someone who maybe gets more touches and can get more yards, and so that you don't have to necessarily roll the dice every week on whether or not he's going to jump into the end zone, that would be what I would do.
And you also got to monitor the Kyler Murray injury too, because I think that affects it a lot.
Absolutely, I agree as well.
So I can be swayed. I don't own James Conner in any league that I'm in, so I can see the value in both options here. I think I would say it just depends on the offer if you own him, what your situation is, and all of that. Because obviously, I think you can make a good case either way to sell high or a hold, just depending on what the offer would be. What you're willing to give him up for.
Yeah, he could break the top 10 running backs rankings, and then he'd be worth the most he's been this whole time. So I don't know, maybe you could swing him for like a wide receiver, like your wide receiver 2. Try to get DJ Moore or something in a package.
That might actually be that would be one that if I owned him, I might be willing to do that for like DJ Moore. That would be a good one.
For sure, yeah. He's definitely like the question mark anomaly one, because it's just, will he keep it up? But then he keeps getting some touchdowns, but we see the weeks where he gets zero. And
that was what we were saying about LeGarrette Blount a few years ago too. Like we were saying the same thing. Like he doesn't get, like, the volume's not there, but he gets the volume in the red zone though, and he scored what, like 15 touchdowns that year, or 20 touchdowns.
He took me to the championship that year.
I mean, we just kept being like, and we weren't doing a podcast at that time, but you and me were just like, oh, he's gonna fall off at some point, and he just didn't the whole season. So I mean, there's guys that do that every year that just get a touchdown in the red zone every single week.
Yeah, and he did finish top 10 in running back.
Yeah, he was he was definitely that season. He scored like 22 touchdowns or something, 21, something like that.
For sure. Would you guys sell high on Elijah Mitchell or hold now that he's fully healthy?
He's fully healthy. I think he's a sell high just because Raheem Mostert's going to be back at some point, and we just don't know how. They like to shake up their running backs positions at San Francisco. I don't think anybody's running back job over there is ever secure. So,
and it's like 2 insane weeks that you just can't see him keeping. Like in this 2 weeks, it's above a 6-yard per carry average and over 100 yards and a touchdown each week. So it's hard to see that consistent.
I've always viewed him as this isn't a term we use as much in fantasy football, more so in like hockey and basketball. But I've always looked at him as like a streamer. You're playing him right now while he's hot. He's had 2 good weeks. Now I think it's your time to trade him before Mostert gets back and he gets, significantly less.
I think Mostert is now having a surgery though, so he might.
Oh, is he?
I was looking him up. Let me make sure that's. Let me make sure. I was reading about him earlier today.
All right, because that definitely affects
just for this reason.
My outlook on Mitchell for sure.
Underwent surgery Tuesday to address chipped cartilage in his left knee. But that was October 12th, so never mind. That's not news.
I don't even know what kind of recovery they're looking at for that. I don't know. I mean, it does depend on it, but we've seen in Kyle Shanahan's office.
It says expected to be back to full health ahead of the 2022 season, so he's done.
Oh, so he's done.
Oh, wow, okay.
So, it's hard. It's hard because Shanahan's offense has always been this rotating running back room. It's always been so frustrating to try and keep and hold any of the San Francisco running backs for the past 2 years, because they rotate so much. So I feel like if you're going to get a good price for him, I'd say sell high. I mean, because you never know if then he's going to fall off. Maybe he has a bad game next week, and then they stream another guy off the practice squad, and then he has a good game. Then they're running him as the primary. So I don't know. I feel like if you could get the right price, I'd say sell high.
Because they consistently say how they like all their guys. Like, they talk so highly of all their running backs. They really like Elijah Mitchell. They really like JaMychal Hasty. They really like Jeff Wilson. They really like Trey Sermon. I feel like Elijah Mitchell, as long as he keeps doing good, he's going to keep getting, being the starter. But if he has a bad week, they'll just get the next guy in there. I think that is a very volatile situation.
I agree.
Yep, so high. You heard it here first. Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, would you sell high on him? He finally had a good week again.
He did.
But he was kind of down before that.
I had him written down as a sell high.
Okay.
I don't think Teddy Bridgewater can be trusted. I don't think that I think this offense is very hot and cold. I think that, if you can, like I said, if you can kind of get rid of him, because, I mean, he's not even getting that, he had 10 touches today for 47 yards. He had a touchdown, and then he had 3 receptions for 15 yards and a receiving touchdown. So big day for him for a touchdown on each side, but I don't know. I don't feel like that's necessary, but it's against Washington, and Bridgewater's throwing the ball, and Bridgewater's been up and down. He hot start and then kind of fell off. Kind of the same thing with Darnold. So it's like, I don't think that he can maintain being. I mean, this week he was RB10. I don't think he can maintain that. So I think if you can get a guy with maybe a more consistent quarterback or offensive line, I'd say sell high.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that, like that whole take. I pretty much the same points. Like I would.
Yeah, he's
definitely
really
be
like a
selling high.
worse. He's a worse James Conner, like touchdown dependent back.
Right.
So,
Is that the new? That's the new what the category is called, the James Conner. It's the James Conner this year. It's not the
or the blunt. I think the original was blunt.
Blunt.
Does it change every year, or is it always just the blunt? I feel like we can't sit there and be talking about the blunts because then people, if they come in at the wrong time in this podcast,
Well,
are going to think we're talking about something else.
Yeah,
So.
no, it
True.
was actually that'd be a good little segment. I could make an animation for it.
That would be pretty
The
funny.
blunt effect.
Yeah, there we go. We should do that. Have that
And,
be the blunt.
Yeah, no, it was blunt. It was blunt like 4 or 5 years ago, and then 3 years ago it was like Mark Ingram was the touchdown back of the year.
Yeah.
God, who was it after that?
There's always every year there's a Blunt Award winner. So
Actually, Melvin Gordon was really, really good one year.
Melvin Gordon was one of those touchdown guys. Yeah.
He was more than I felt like he was a little more than a touchdown back though, because he had breakthrough runs.
He was with Chargers, correct? He was with.
Yeah.
Well, I think they were still in San Diego at that time. I don't think they had gone to Los Angeles yet, so it was the San Diego Chargers that he was. So, which just proves how long he's been away from like good, solid RB1 production.
Right.
And I don't know. I think you sell high just because the offense is just so untrustworthy. If you can get a guy that's more consistent, I'd say do it.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure. And then I put Joe Burr on here, 20.26 fantasy points. He's the number 9 QB. He might bump up a little bit because some guys didn't play well this week or were out. Would you sell high on him?
I feel like this one would be harder because quarterbacks, a
lot of people he's probably your QB2. I mean, your QB1 might have already had their bye week.
Right.
So is he a sell high? If he's your QB1, I would say no.
Right. If he's your QB2, I mean, definitely see what you can get. It's just I don't know what kind of offer people would be willing to give up for Joe Burrow, but I mean, I would attempt it.
Just see whoever has the worst quarterbacks in your league.
Just throw a few lines. That might be
your only
chance in the pond and see who bites.
Yeah. What do you think, Kyle?
I mean, I agree. Now that we're kind of getting through buys, I mean, the Cincinnati team. I'm really, like I said, I was really surprised about this week about not only the Jets stepping up, but just the 2 steps back that Cincinnati seemed to take. The offense is still high powered though. Like I don't want to make it seem like we're taking anything against Joe Burrow. Like he was 21 for 34 for 259 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and then he did like 1 run and like lost a yard, probably on a kind of scramble. So like he's still I feel like this year he's been very good at limiting his mistakes, but also just being like a high-powered guy that can really throw the ball. I feel like if you don't need him, try and see now if you can get some of these guys that we're talking about, buy lows and stuff, or maybe some of these guys that could be your wide receiver 2, your RB2, a good flex, a good tight end, because he's consistent and he's someone that I would put in, and I feel like you could be able to trust week to week. And that's honestly at this point, people who are panicking, I feel like have lost their QB or their QB's down and they have no one to do. So see who's desperate, because they might give you something really good in return for him. I feel like he's been okay.
Definitely. Yeah, top 10, and I could definitely see him finishing top 10 because of the wide receivers he's got.
Yeah, that's a very good group. That's a very good offense.
Do you guys have any other sell highs? Because that was my list.
No, you hit the few that I had, especially Melvin Gordon. That was my number 1 that I had on the list. So
yeah, I think that's a good list.
Sure. And so this is the smallest scoop 'em up segment we've had since.
Actually, I do have another sell high.
All right.
Sorry, I just thought about it.
Go ahead.
The heck's his name?
Yes.
Oh
him.
my god.
Yeah, that guy. He's a good guy. Really did well today. Caught a few really good passes.
Is it a running back or can we?
No, he's on the Rams.
On the Rams.
Receiver
on the Rams.
Not
like
Cooper
one
Kupp.
of the main 2? Or the third guy? You talking about the third guy?
No,
Van
I'm
Jefferson?
I'm talking about
Woods.
Woods. Would you sell high on Woods because he's had some bad weeks to start the season? had a couple good weeks now. Would you sell high on Robert Woods?
I don't know, because now you could argue that the first couple weeks was the QB was learning how to play with these guys, and now he knows how to.
I mean, he's been above 10 points since week 4.
And him and Cooper Kupp were both like even this week. They're both 17 point something for half PPR.
Yeah, so are
but
you
I see what you're saying. He's.
I feel like he'd be a decent sell high if like that would be an interesting.
He's probably
offer.
already reached his peak here around rank 20. You could see what you could get and see if you could get a guy that has higher upside at wideout or even running back that could finish better than top 20. Because, yeah, with Cooper Kupp and how much they could spread the ball around, Woods isn't going to finish. I don't think he's going to finish top 15. I really don't.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so either. I think he's the second fiddle, in the cuff to Cooper Kupp. And a lot of it was like Calvin Ridley, they were all saying like he's going to take this huge step forward and everything this year, but I didn't think he was going to, because when you have the wide receiver 1 going to get as many double coverages as
Julio.
You had as Julio last year,
Yeah.
and then as Cooper Kupp is getting right now, that's going to open up then the next guy. It's kind of like then you're going to be single coverage more for the second guy, which right now is Robert Woods. He's had more than 10 points and had really good amount of targets, and the highest one of the season being Seattle, where he got 14 targets and had 21 points on half league PPR. So I don't know. I feel like he's too consistent right now to want to get rid of. I feel like I'd hold him. Especially because people, with how good Cooper Kupp is getting, he's going to continue to draw those double coverages, leaving Woods open then to take up more of the receptions, especially getting him now from a passer like Stafford compared to Goff. Now this offense is, like we've seen this year, just dangerous. And so, I don't know. I feel like I'm keeping second fiddle on this dangerous of an offense.
Okay. Good point. I just felt like it was worth mentioning because he started out kind of really disappointing.
Yeah, you could fish. I mean, just talk to guys in your league, but
yeah,
I wouldn't make an offer that you're going to regret later. Must grab waiver wire ads, scoop them up. I think this is the smallest list we've had because there's really not, and I was looking at a 10-team league, not our 12-team Bear and Wasteland, but yeah, I have 8 guys in here, 8 guys. You guys just let me know if you want to add anybody, and this isn't in order because there's a lot of question marks on who's going to take over, but Jordan Howard and Boston Scott, 17.7 fantasy points for Jordan Howard, Boston Scott 18. Which one would you grab over the other?
So I think I would grab Boston Scott over Jordan Howard just because Boston Scott is also a good pass catcher.
Okay.
And he'd be more valuable in a PPR league. Jordan Howard, they've been talking about trading for a while now, so that might have been why he got some playing time this week because the trade deadline's coming up.
Okay.
I think they're trying to be like, hey, he can still do something. Why don't somebody give us a
what
pick?
What if he goes to a team that needs a running back and he takes over duties?
We just have to see what team that is and what the situation is. Most likely, depending on
backing up Antonio Gibson.
That
and McKissick
could be. That could be. We just got to see where he goes. But I would be more inclined to pick up Boston Scott just because I think he has a higher floor just because he can catch some passes.
For sure. Personally, I don't think I'm going to grab either, put in a waiver. I just wanted to see, they are going to be picked up because of those performances. So it's like, is it worth it? Who's going to be the number one over the other? What do you think, Kyle?
Seeing as how Howard's been a healthy scratch basically every single week except this one, I would think if you're going to do someone, it's going to be Boston Scott. But I don't think I'm picking up a waiver. I don't think I'm using my waiver on him. I think if maybe he's lasted through, but I agree with you. I feel like a lot of people will panic. Well, not panic, but they'll get excited when they see these numbers, and they'll probably pick them up and they'll waste their waiver and everything, which just means you move further up the list, and you get to then be higher up when there's someone I think more. But I mean, even Boston Scott hasn't even really played in very many games, and I know that the injuries and everything. But I mean, you're talking about guys. So Boston Scott's only played 4 games, and he had played in Las Vegas last week. In our half PPR, he got 9.4 points and a touchdown this year. I mean, but only on seven rushing attempts, whereas this year he only got 12. This game he only got 12 rushing attempts. So
Right.
I don't know. I'll pick him up and put him on my bench if I don't have to use a waiver on him. But I'm not wasting my waiver on guys who I think just had outstanding game, but it might just be a diamond in a haystack,
For sure.
Yeah, I would pick Boston Scott up if he cleared waivers, and then I could just add him. But I don't think I would use a waiver claim on either of these two as well. If I was forced to pick one of these two up, I would take Scott over Howard.
For sure. Yeah, and then we also talked about how Gainwell could just be dropped, and then that's a steal.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
So after that, Mark Ingram is now on the Saints, and he could be taking over that touchdown back row, the blunt effect, we call it.
Man,
Are you guys?
I love it.
Is this a number one grab?
I think he's worth. I think that's worth a grab because there's no real familiarity that he has to. You don't have to worry about him familiarizing himself because he is back on the team that he was with like at the start of his career. He knows this offense. I feel like his first game, he's gonna come right in and he'll be right back to what he was doing before he left. Being a nice compliment to Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, what do you think, Kyle?
I'm going to pull up. I want to see how he finished. I know that he was playing well through the game while I was watching. I don't know. Alvin Kamara does just so much work. I mean, so for full PPR, Mark Ingram today, 6 touches for 27 and then 2 receptions for 25 yards, finished with 7.2 points. I think that he'll obviously be used far more in this offense than he was ever being used in Houston. It's Houston this year. And so I think that if he's available in your league, which I think he's available in a lot of leagues this year so far.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever hurts to pick someone up that you could throw in your flex if need be. Mark Ingram, according to Yahoo Sports, Mark Ingram is only rostered in 25.2% of leagues, meaning that he is almost 75% available. I think if he clears waivers, for sure pick him up. And I mean, if you're weak at running back, I say even put your waiver in on him because I mean, this was only his first game back, already 7.2 points. I mean, that's better than Derrick Henry this week, and he's playing behind Alvin Kamara. So, my opinion, I'd say if you're weak on it, for sure, try and get him with your waiver.
And I don't think that is also gonna affect Alvin Kamara all that much. Now Alvin Kamara is excited because he'll get back to being able to run routes in the slot and having Mark Ingram as lining up at the running back spot. He gets to run a receiver route. They're still going to find ways to put Alvin Kamara out there like almost every play still. So
sure. I agree. He dodged a bye week by getting traded, so now he just goes all the way the rest of the time.
Wow. That's crazy.
You wouldn't have to worry about that.
True. Just keep in mind that Winston is with his knee. Keep a look on Winston. The reason I say that is because Simeon is the backup quarterback who played well today and was able to finish and defeat Brady. But this is now a Saints team that's 5-2. Or no, I'm sorry. What are they now? Are they 5-3? I think.
That sounds because it's been 8 weeks and they didn't.
I can't remember.
Bye. Did they have a bye yet? They are 5-2.
5-2. Okay, so 5-2, and they just beat Tampa Bay, who's now 6-2. So they're very much in that race for that NFC South, and especially if Winston's going to be out and Simeon's in, I feel like they're going to have to go to the ground game more too, because obviously Simeon doesn't have the arm strength or the accuracy that Winston has, which makes Ingram even more valuable. So make sure if Winston's out for a few weeks, I think Ingram's even more valuable.
I would agree, definitely.
For sure. And here's one I actually found a couple more as we've been talking. So this is going to be interesting. Devonte Freeman, because they had a bye week, nobody really grabbed him, but now I think he's going to be scooped up because the bye's done. He's going to take over Baltimore lead back duties for the most part. And he had two pretty dang good weeks before the bye. He just wasn't grabbed because of this. And people, they want active players. So how high are you on him? Are you still higher on him than Mark Ingram, Zach?
I'm still high on Devonte Freeman too. I definitely think he's worth an ad.
Yeah, only 13.9% owned.
He's the number one running back right now, so on that team. So
yeah, I think anytime you're going to have a look at RB1, I think it's at least worth trying to grab and just seeing if he's able to come up with something. Worries me with like Cincinnati only got 4 touches for 14 yards and a touchdown. So the touchdown really is what salvaged his day. But coming back off the bye, lead back duties, maybe they start going through him more and they start giving him some more touches, especially if he can prove himself. But I'll never say no to grabbing an RB1. I mean, honestly, I feel like that's just kind of a rule that goes without being said, because if you have, no matter what you have on your bench, if you have an RB1 on your bench, that's still someone that you could throw in and still be confident that they're going to get touches and they're going to get attempts. So, and that's all you at least hope for in the beginning, is that, you have someone that's at least going to get the chances to try and get you points. So, I'd say, sure. I don't know. It's hard to choose between the two of them, but because he's an RB1, I'd say that Freeman's probably more valuable at this point.
Okay.
And then another one that I just added, Deshaun Watson. How high are you guys on him with a potential trade?
I'm not high on it at all. I don't think he's getting traded. Houston's kind of come out and thrown cold water on all that this week, so I don't think that he's going to be traded. A lot of teams too are also saying that they're just out. They don't want to deal with it, so I don't think he has a ton of suitors.
Yeah, sure. There's still lots going on. All the investigation stuff and everything.
Yeah, there's just way too much.
Is still ongoing. So I feel like teams don't want to get in the middle of that.
Right.
And I don't think Texans. I feel like if Texans wanted to move him and they agreed to terms with Miami, I feel like they would have done it. Right. I don't think that they would have waited. If they truly wanted to get rid of him, I feel like they would have done it. I mean, he definitely does not garner the stock that they want him for, though, and I think that their heads are in the clouds, or they just don't have a full grasp of what's going on with like his whole situation.
Right.
Because I feel like every time that they've had a trade offer, it's just been ridiculous and something that's not even worth him. Even for how well he was playing before all of this, I don't think like a lot of the stuff that they want for him is worth it.
Right.
For sure. All right. Jimmy Garoppolo, 27.28 fantasy points. He's only 4.2% owned. I just think if you don't have a bench QB, this is a decent guy to grab going forward.
Yeah, I definitely think if you have like a bye week coming up and you don't have a bench quarterback, he could definitely be a good ad. He's starting to put some good weeks together, and he had a couple of rushing touchdowns today. Like, what's that about?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen. He looked awkward while he was running. I don't think he knows how to run.
Yeah, I don't think he does either. He's very weird.
That's another thing. Like,
he ain't no Italian stallion, that's for sure.
It's kind of like with the Philly-Detroit game. San Francisco just wanted to mess with us because they know we're like a college level team. So they were like, "See if you can run a couple in. That'd be funny."
Yeah, I mean that was funny because he's following like Deebo Samuel as like his lead blocker. It looked hilarious, but and I'm like, that's my Bears that I'm making fun of.
Maybe with Khalil Mack out, they were just confident. I don't know.
Yeah, that's like when you used to see Peyton Manning run it in back in the day. It's like, oh, that's awkward as heck, but he got it in.
Yeah,
he did the thing.
He did the thing. I don't know. I'd say watch the waiver wire. I'd want to see who else comes off of rosters now that, obviously another bye week, see who comes off. I mean, he's going up, then his next 2 games are Arizona and then the Rams. I mean, and in the past when he's gone up against good teams, I mean, he really hasn't done much against them. I know that obviously he was in and out between him and Trey Lance. Obviously now with Trey Lance out, he's basically the main guy. But, I don't know, like, you went up against a Seattle team, only scored 8.6 points. He went up against a Green Bay team, scored 14.6. You have Arizona, who just lost to Green Bay, who's going to want to come back roaring. And then you have the Los Angeles Rams, who are playing as good as anybody in the NFL right now. So I don't know if just see who's on there. Obviously, he's in our 10-man and our 12-man league. He's by far the best one that's there. But see who comes off of rosters this week. See if maybe there's someone else that's maybe a little bit more dependable than him, especially if you're looking either through injury or you guys are looking through your bye week. Just see if there's someone better. I don't think that he's a bad pickup. I just don't think he'll replicate this game against the next two teams.
I agree.
For sure. Carlos Hyde, if James Robinson is going to miss time, how high are you on Carlos Hyde compared to these other running backs we just talked about?
I am not super high on him, but Carlos Hyde's like a guy that if my waiver doesn't go through, I'd probably get him then after waivers clear, because I don't think anybody's going to be using a waiver claim on Carlos Hyde.
Sure.
So I feel like, if I can't get like Mark Ingram, if that doesn't work out, then okay, I'll just take a chance with Carlos Hyde without having to use a waiver claim.
All right, for sure. Kyle, you got any other comments?
I mean, I'll stick to the same thing that I said earlier with him. If Robinson's out and he's RB1, it never hurts to have an RB1 on your bench at least. Someone that you can put in that you know is going to get touches. I mean, he got thrown into the game today, had 9 rushing touches for 32 yards, and then had 8 targets for 8 targets for 6 receptions, 40 yards on that, 13.2 full PPR points. I think especially if he's RB1, I feel like that he's another good one to pick up. But again, we talked about this offense. I talked about Trevor Lawrence and this offensive line and these receivers. I don't know if you can really trust anybody on this offense right now. But I guess, we're trusting James Robinson week to week. So, maybe it's the run game only for them, kind of like the Jets, where it's the run game only that you can maybe trust with like Carter at the moment. So I'd say keep an eye on Robinson's injury designation. And if you're able to, like I said, it never hurts to have him on your bench. If he ends up being RB2, you can always drop him.
Right.
Sure. And then I'm going to hop down real quick to Russell Gage. I think this is the number 1 wide receiver on the list to grab.
Okay.
Just because Calvin Ridley announced he was out, and we're guessing for the rest of the year. So I think this guy can definitely take over. I mean, he's been hyped up since last year, really. And we know the talent's there. We know also that Atlanta's started to figure out their offense a bit. And I think he's definitely worth a bench grab. I mean, your wideouts on your bench probably aren't that good anyway, and this could be a great steal.
Yeah. I think I tend to agree there. That might be like a sneaky little move that somebody could make that, gets you a couple crucial wins hidden down to the stretch this season,
Yeah, and I kind of see it like a lot of people who are early in waivers are probably going to grab the running backs. Right. If you're going to kind of plan for that and know that, and you're like the 10th on the waivers, I don't see why not just put your first one in for Gage.
Yeah. That'd be good. I think that could be a good move.
Yeah, and Russell Gage only rostered in 12.2% of leagues according to Yahoo, so available in a lot. So could even maybe be someone who it clears waivers and maybe you're able to scoop them up without having to use it. But
that's true. Yeah, could take the risk.
Take the risk. I have another receiver that I put on for a waiver pickup.
Okay.
Devonte Parker, wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins, just came back after being injured for 4 weeks with his shoulder. Came back, had a really good day today. 8 for 11, 85 yards for 16.5 points. He's only picked up in 56% of leagues. Okay. And this is his first game back, and he played like wide receiver 1. He did. He was a game time decision, so I didn't play him this week. I do have him. I didn't play him this week because I didn't even know he was in until like the very 2 minutes before they started playing. I didn't see it. Yeah. But they go to Houston next week. So if you're hurting for a wide receiver, 1-7 Houston, that could be a good matchup for him. Obviously, Tua is back in and slinging the ball. He hit him. He gave him 11 targets. I mean, he's playing like an RB1 his first week back. I think maybe it'd be worth a waiver grab too.
Yeah, at 56%, that's definitely worth a go and check, see if he's available. and definitely would be worth a waiver ad then. So I would agree with that one for sure.
Definitely. And then I have a deeper league one, Cole Beasley on the Bills. He's playing a lot better the past 2 weeks. And probably like a deeper league, like 12-team minimum, maybe like a 14-team league for sure. But he could be a good bench receiver, and it's a high-powered offense, so he could still keep getting those targets. What do you guys think?
Yeah, like you said, high-powered targets. I feel like he's definitely probably more so touchdown dependent to have like really good weeks compared to like the other receivers, because he's probably wide receiver 3 on the team.
Yeah, he's the slot guy.
But again, you got a guy that's throwing as many times during the game as they are during for the Bills and stuff. I feel like it never hurts to try and see if he clears waivers and maybe get him. I don't know if I'd spend a waiver pick on him, but if he clears it and I need somebody, I don't think it would hurt to pick him up.
I think he's definitely a little better in a PPR league too.
Yeah, this week he got 11 fantasy points just on 110 yards. He didn't get a touchdown.
Okay,
so that's awesome. That's a good week. I mean, that's a solid flex play right there.
He doesn't get a lot of. He's never been a touchdown guy. He's always like, there's certain guys that are like red zone guys, and then there's guys like Beasley. They're between the 20s guys. That they get all that space in the middle of the field, and they're a big part of them driving down. But then once the fields get shorter, they usually aren't ones catching touchdowns. That's just
needs to be another button, dude.
What?
Between the 20 guy.
No, between the 20s.
Yeah, I like that. Between the 20s, and then we'll do red zone guy.
It's true. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
I just think we could have a lot of good sound effects.
I think you could. There's a lot there you can work with. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it just gets into divvying up the ball and targets. I mean, I think is what it comes down to for him. If he's going to continue to have the volume, then heck yeah, take him. And if he continues to play well, then he might even be a sell high candidate coming up. If he can continue to maybe put a few good games together, I mean, that would be someone that I would for sure try and see if I could sell high to try and get somebody else, just because of where he's at on the depth chart for receiver. So
yeah,
we haven't really talked about a defense to pick up. Can I talk about a defense that people can pick up?
Yeah, sure. We have one as well.
Oh, who's yours? Maybe it's the same one.
The Steelers.
Dang it, I was going to say the Saints. All right, we both went with S's.
Really? Yeah. I was going to say Steel Curtain is back, baby. But they might be, man. I mean, they're supposed to be better than what they've done. And so people dropped them because they weren't performing. But now it might be a little sneaky grab for you.
Little cheeky move.
Yeah. Steelers are rostered.
They could make the top 10 potentially. I'm not going to say it's a little late for them to finish top 5 unless they just broke out. But top 10's in the range.
So rostered in 65.1% of leagues. And if you look at their next 2 games, next they go to their home against Chicago and then Detroit. They could have 2 really good weeks. Defense, really, really pushing hard. I mean, those could be good, especially if you're looking for like a waiver, like a grab real quick for a buy, or maybe your defense hasn't been playing very well as of late. I mean, those are 2 really good games. You could probably stream them for those 2 games. Then then they go into a really hard 3 weeks of the Chargers, Cincinnati, and Baltimore, which I don't know. I feel like trying to play against any of those teams is going to be a toss-up and a roll of the dice. I feel like if you need a defense, I'd say, yeah, I feel like those are great matchups for their defense. Play against Chicago and Detroit, and then maybe see who else you can grab for the next 3.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I love it.
Logic,
also, the Chargers
sound.
have been struggling, so it's not like they
which is interesting.
Are guaranteed to do bad week 11 either.
No, and that's true. And so you could roll the dice. But I don't know. I feel like just with how we know they can play, they're someone that I would just be, if they play really well the next 2 weeks against Chicago and Detroit, then sure, why not? Just let it ride, Especially if Herbert continues to struggle and the Chargers offense continues to struggle like it has been, then sure, I would let it ride. But if Herbert and them kind of get back on a rhythm, I don't know if I necessarily want to put them against them.
sure. Zach, you got a guy here?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up Gabriel Davis. I know I talked about him at the beginning of the season as like a possible deep sleeper, a very deep sleeper for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I think he had like a little injury or something. He came back and started today, got a touchdown. He seems like whenever he plays, he has good chemistry with Josh Allen. He's definitely in that wide receiver 3 or 4 category, depending on how good Beasley's doing. So, doesn't have a ton of value. He'd be not so much a waiver ad. He'd definitely be, most likely he's going to clear waivers.
Yeah.
So you can get this guy for free, next week if you really need like a depth piece that you're fine holding on your bench for a little bit. But I feel like the earlier you get him, the better, because he's going to potential to start breaking out over the next couple of weeks if he gets some more consistency going with Josh Allen. So this would be like an ad, like one of those ones that's like a week or two early that we might be, that everybody will be talking about in a couple of weeks. But like, we brought him up 2 weeks before. You got him on your team already. That could be a nice little sneaky move. Or it could be absolutely nothing. So just got to see how it all shakes out. But I think there's definitely potential there.
I mean, only rostered in 3.1% of leagues.
Yeah,
they're going next to
very
Jacksonville and then the Jets. And then, I mean, tough matchup against Indy. But again, it's Buffalo, who we know that, Josh Allen can sling that ball. So,
yeah.
Especially I think that if he can continue to get the targets and get the options and stuff, and like you said, build chemistry over these next 2 games that should be wins for Buffalo, because if Buffalo really wants to go deep, I mean, they got to get wins over these next 2 teams.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like he could definitely become good. I feel like like you said, if you got a spot and you can maybe afford to maybe wait on him, let him cook a little bit, see what he can become.
Yeah.
Let him cook. I like it.
I like that too.
Just like Chef Curry.
Chef Curry. Exactly.
Yeah, last one. Hopefully he's still out there for you. Michael Carter, who we've been talking about.
Talked about him earlier. He's had a hell of a week.
You would have to have the number 1 waiver in your league, because this will be the guy if he's still available. He's 68.9% owned.
Yeah, that's worth a go and check. There's a 22% chance, 32% chance he could be available in your league. So,
yeah, definitely go for it. And that wraps it up. Unless you guys have other players, Kyle, you got other guys you want to talk about?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Kyle. You said that you had something on the Jets defense for later.
Okay, first I got 2 more quick waivers.
Okay,
but I'll make them quick. If you're looking for a defense for this upcoming week, Saints defense, only owned in 56.3% of leagues. Obviously, they shut down Tom Brady today. They went 2 fumbles, 1 interception. 2 interceptions, 1 fumble. One of those returned for a touchdown, 3 sacks. The past 2 games, they've had 10 points, and then tonight they had 12 points. Up next, they go to Atlanta. Again, big matchup, but they've been playing really well lately. If you need someone there, see if they're available in your league to grab. The other guy, if you're looking for a kicker, Zane Gonzalez of Carolina, only owned in 2.2% of leagues, went 4 for 4 today from 23, 29, 51, and 57, and then was 1 for 1 on extra points. Carolina won 19-13. He scored 13 points. So the fact that he was that good and that, I mean, he's a solid kicker. If Darnold's out, they might not be able to move that ball into the end zone. He might be getting more kicks. I think that possibly he could be good too if you're looking for maybe a solid guy to throw in there because you're missing your guy on bye. So other than that, that is all I had on waiver.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good kicker. Good kicker talk.
Good kicker talk. Don't make a button for that one.
Yeah.
GKT. So I had a question. Yeah, right. I had a question for you guys because I had the situation last week, and I thought it would be a really good talking piece.
Okay.
If anyone here is listening is new to fantasy or experienced fantasy, we've all probably had a week where we have decided that, oh my God, I made the worst fantasy decision of my life so far to date. I want to hear about your guys' worst fantasy decision, but what you learned about it and like what you learned from it.
I've never had a bad move in my life, so I don't know.
No, I'll go first because I knew this was coming, Zach. So you can mull it over.
Yeah, I mean, I have to sift through the notes because there's been a ton of them for me.
For me, it's not in football, but you could still relate it to football.
For sure.
Fantasy basketball, I took Derrick Rose in the first round after the year he came back after he missed the whole next season from the ACL tear. So the year he was coming back, they hyped up the comeback, and I thought he was an MVP just 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, and I can grab him round one. I really didn't understand the numbers fully of the scoring and how it worked, and he was just not a round one value, and I think my first year might have been my worst year in fantasy basketball. So I think just knowing your scoring is the biggest thing, and knowing that also guys coming off of injury, you usually don't take first round. I think you usually got to fade those guys in the draft if it's a big injury. So like Kevin Durant last year was coming back from an Achilles tear, and I got him like late second round, and even then that was still a risk. But same applies to football, really. Just coming off of injury, don't trust those guys. Try to fade them in the draft, and then just believing in hometown heroes. I guess you can't have any biases in fantasy.
True. That's true. Which is hard to do, especially when you got a guy that you like and that you root for. It's hard to get away, or just big names in general. It's hard to get away from big names after they've been injured. I feel like Christian McCaffrey might be that dude for football here going forward. I mean, he's been out on a huge chunk of this season again too. Does that mean that he's out of the first round next year? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, so that's a good point.
Oh, he is, dude. No, actually, people would still draft him, but I still, even this year, man, coming into it, I did not get how Derrick Henry wasn't number one. Just did not. I guess for the passing, that's the only reason people would say that.
Right.
But come on, it's Derrick Henry, and he was like, people were getting him like number 6.
Yep.
I mean, what the hell?
One of my worst moves I ever did in fantasy football. I've made actually my worst moves I've ever done in fantasy have come in hockey. Not so much this year, the last year, but like my first few years playing fantasy hockey, I would always end up dropping a guy like the first week or two of the season that starts really slow. And then by the end of the season, he's like a top 20 player. And it's, I ended up dropping him like week 2 because I didn't have patience. I've done that a ton in hockey. It's really annoying how much I do that. And I don't ever seem to learn from those. But the one that comes to mind for football, it happened over multiple seasons. So I drafted David Johnson. This is like that first year after he had that insane year where he finished as like a top 5 running back. The next year I took him with the number 1 pick. He ended up, really busting. He got injured like the first game of the season. Yeah,
it was the first game of the season.
Out for the whole season. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, he was great 2 years ago. And then the next year I end up taking him again in the first round, and then he played and it was just really bad. So then I just kind of learned. I just had to learn kind of don't get your mind set on one guy and make it happen. Like just kind of let the draft room come to you type of thing. I just kind of had to learn that the hard way because I was always like, I got to get David Johnson for like 2 seasons.
Right. I mean, you never know when the comeback's going to happen because I feel like they always talk it up. Oh, the comeback's coming. It's coming. Like, oh, all right, I'll get him. And then I feel for sure was definitely probably in my recent mind has been one of the bigger fantasy disappointments as far as like how hyped he was, and then compared to multiple seasons afterwards, just never came back to what they were, to that one season.
Yeah.
I agree with you. That's a good lesson. And that's unfortunately is a hard one to learn.
Yeah, it is because everybody wants that stud running back, and that's just the goal, really.
Right. Totally.
But you, Kyle.
Mine happened last week, and as Zach was foreshadowing earlier, it involves the Jets defense. So,
Oh boy. I do remember this. Okay, I know where this is going.
So my Buffalo Bills that I have for defense, the number one scoring defense in the league right now, were on bye. I was looking, of course, we're in a 12-man league. There's not a lot of defenses that are available, especially because I wasn't dropping the Bills, so I was keeping a bench spot for them. And I feel like that was the same thing kind of for a few other guys who had defenses on buys. So the pickings were really slim. Out of any of the matchups, the one that kind of piqued my interest a little bit was the Jets versus New England. All right, this is last week. So if you know the score from the Jets New England last week, you already know where this is going. They were saying Mac Jones, he's still new, hasn't really played very well, and could definitely, turn the ball over a few times. And I was like, you know what? If they can just get me a handful of points, 5 points, I'll be happy with that. No big deal,
Yeah.
They end up going negative 11 points. They lost 54-13. No interceptions, no fumbles. I was sick to my stomach because I was playing your guys' dad last week. And it legitimately, he had the Saints defense in the next week, and they almost scored a defensive touchdown on the last play, which would have lost me the week.
Yeah.
And it literally came down to the last throw that Geno Smith threw. And, oh my God, he had two hands on it, and then he just couldn't bring it down. My heart was in my throat. All right. I almost lost from that dumb decision. And the biggest thing that I want, the biggest lesson that I learned about it, I'm not going to say don't play Jets people because, of course, they had a huge game today. So what I will say, though, is that on the fantasy app when I was reading, they were saying, they could have a good game against Mac Jones and everything. They said, and I quote, stream them with confidence in this week.
Right.
And I said, stream them with confidence. So that kind of added to what I was already thinking. I was like, well, I already thought that they're going to have a good game. Sweet. Well, I'll pick them up. They're available. I'll throw them in. I only need 1 week out of them. Hopefully I get a good game.
Right.
Don't trust. Do your research. Because I should have done more research, and I would have saw that they're still bottom of the barrel in defense, that their front line is not as good as the Yahoo Fantasy app said. So just when you're picking up people, don't just trust one source. Do your research. Go to there's a whole bunch of websites all over the place. Look up what the ranks are. Look up and this goes for the other way too, saying that a player is going to be bad. Look up what the ranks are. Look up how around them how they're playing, because again, everything that you're when you're in your fantasy apps, that's just one person who are writing those opinions and stuff. It's not this big group who all decides on it. So don't always trust the apps. Just always do your research for who you pick up, who you stream, who you drop, who you play. Huge lesson that I learned, and hopefully y'all don't have to go through the same gut-wrenching feeling of me, oh my God, I'm going to lose this week because my defense got negative 11 points.
Yeah.
So. Definitely agree. I did that in one of my leagues, definitely, and that was horrible.
What, you played the Jets?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
did you really?
I needed, I think this is why I did it. I think that's the one I had either Dallas defense or my main defense was on bye. And so I just had to grab somebody, and I didn't want to play nobody. So I literally did just play a matchup. And yeah, I totally agree. All the fantasy apps information just sucks. It's these writers aren't paid enough, so they don't care. I think the best information I've ever gotten is just from other podcasts and taking notes. I think that's the best way to go. And there's the other websites too, but they literally are just numbers. So if you're going to go with a gut, the stat punching websites might not do it for you either.
Right. Just get multiple sources. Don't rely on one. Look around, listen to other people, see what else is going on in a bunch of different stuff, and then just take a consensus. It takes a lot of work, but obviously if you're going to put in the work for fantasy anyway, doing a little bit of research might just save you stress and heart pounding later and possibly breaking things, because maybe you would have lost if you played the Jets last week. I don't know. But yeah. So, but that is, I'm glad. All right. I'm glad I'm not the only one that did that. Now we
Go
both
ahead.
learned about it.
Yeah, at least you still won with it, though.
I did, and I didn't deserve to. It was so lucky. It was another one of Michael Pittman's great games, and he saved me.
Right.
And I got lucky. And honestly, that's a lot of what fantasy is too. Fantasy is a lot of luck. Fantasy is a lot of the stars aligning, guys breaking out that you have, or the stars aligning and your opponent's people doing horrible. I mean, there is, as much as we talk about it, there is a lot of luck based to it. So you do what you can, but sometimes you can do all the research in the world. It's not going to matter. So,
right.
But anyway, gentlemen, I have been talking enough. I'm sure you're sick of my diarrhea of the mouth.
No.
Everyone,
No, not at
thank
all.
you
It's been great.
very, very much for having me. This has been an awesome time. Obviously, you ever want someone to come back, I will. Everyone who's listening, make sure to go follow these guys on Facebook, and like and subscribe to their channel on YouTube so that you guys never miss a video. Also, just keep a heads up. Obviously, these guys are constantly improving their show and everything. I think eventually the plan is to go to different streaming services with the podcasts and stuff. But for right now, make sure you for sure get them on those different media outlets. Any fantasy sports things that you guys need, these guys are fantasy junkies. They're in every single type of fantasy, I think, besides either men or women's soccer and not women's basketball. But for baseball, basketball, hockey, and of course football, these guys are in it every single day, year round. These guys do a whole bunch of research. So any of your fantasy needs, tell your friends, tell everyone to come listen to this podcast because this is awesome. You can get all of your fantasy stuff in one place here in the Garden Sports.
Man, thank you so much for that. That was great.
What a guy. He really wants to come back.
Yeah. No, man,
Oh,
you're welcome
thank you.
back anytime. Seriously, thank you so much for doing this, man. It was great.
Yeah, man. Maybe
you're actually this was a very fun episode. I had a great time with this.
maybe football every couple of weeks or something. Obviously,
I
that's your main sport, but yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. I know it was a little longer than normal, but we broke out into just some more information for you. So
yeah, thanks everyone. This was great, and thank you, Kyle, again. And
Kyle,
Garden
you brought
we'll be back.
brought a lot of new insight. It was nice to have you.
I appreciate it, guys. Anytime. I'll be back.
Yeah,
All
cheers,
right.
everyone.
Cheers. What are we in England?
Cheers, mate.
Cheerio. Have a
Tea
wonderful
time.
evening.
Tea time. Got to go. Tea and crumpets.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.